Well, we are working artists. I think that's a good way to describe it. It doesn't mean we live necessarily off of our work. There's a clear distinction. Again, if you guys know this stuff, just tell us to fast forward. Or if you have questions too, just feel free to stop us. Because we may be talking about stuff you've never heard of, or stuff you already know, or or the like. So
I might ask some questions.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have a mixture of graduate students and undergraduates. So we're coming from a lot of different places and a lot of different levels.
So who's graduate student? Cool. Who's undergraduate? Everybody else? And you guys all studying the arts?
Okay.
Everybody's like studying like art degrees, right? Okay, cool. So you guys are like,
Yeah.
got it.
We're getting deeper in it through this
You
class.
can't get deeper than the Kiwanis.
It's the
far as you can
deepest,
go.
and we're going during Saturday.
Yeah, you don't want to go any deeper than this.
The trenches of Brooklyn, is that?
Yeah, well, my email heading was the trenches of Brooklyn.
That's exactly it. Yeah, so this is the backwater of Brooklyn. This is literally the canal outside the window, and it goes right to the harbor a couple of blocks down. We've been in this place like, what, 3 years?
3 years.
Like 3 years?
3 years.
There are lots and lots of artists that live in this neighborhood. There are artists that live all over the city, as you guys know. Every borough, the Bronx is full of artists. It's mainly the outer boroughs now, like Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn. Lots of people in Staten Island now too, because you can get bigger spaces there. But in New Jersey, New Jersey, Westchester. I don't think it was here in Westchester. Yeah, Westchester. Artists make artwork, and artwork needs to be made somewhere, and it needs to be stored somewhere. It needs to be shown to other people somewhere. So space is like a huge critical need that we all face. And the outer boroughs is where it's at.
The artists have always been in the trenches.
Yeah, always.
I have a strange space because I'm in a rent-subsidized space in Manhattan, which is Elizabeth Foundation. But I was in Brooklyn for many years in Dumbo, which was also industrial until it became very not industrial and shishi.
Keep all the artists now.
And then all the artists leave. Yeah, that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be where I would go. If I had my choice, if I had to leave my building, I would come to this area, absolutely.
Yeah, so we moved in here about 3 years ago, and at the time it was probably the edge of the frontier of that wave of artists moving further and further and further out, seeking both like big space and affordable space. You want some combination of like good location you can get to as an artist, knowing how expensive things are here. Every artist I know works in some capacity teaching, working in a nonprofit, or doing some other kind of work freelance. But having access to your space is relatively easy, and a decent size in a relatively safe location and a relatively cheap deal. So that was here about 3 years ago. Sort of passed over here. People are down on 4th Avenue, and they're down in Sunset Park and Kensington and further out in Brooklyn. But there's a lot of artists that still live and work here, and it's got the right kinds of buildings. It's industrial kind of buildings, concrete floors and ceilings. It's kind of, although we're in like the middle of this big post-industrial landscape, it's really kind of like being in the country down here. There's nobody down here except us.
That's really interesting.
It's cool. So
It's very quiet.
yeah. So we had a whale actually a couple of like 6 months ago at the mouth of the harbor here, which is just like 5 blocks. It died, but it was interesting to know there was a whale within sight of the studio, which is pretty cool. So it's really kind of amazing. But anyway, we both. Yeah, it was clearly confused. Yeah. But there are manatees out here, believe it or not, from Florida. There's manatees here. There have been harbor seals. There's all kinds of nature down here. So it's really interesting down here. It's like, it's not as weird as you think it is. And in the building we were the first people in this building. We rent our space. But there are like record labels and graphic designers and photographers and filmmakers and writers. There's like a theater, set design company in the building. There's lots of artists. And we run, and this is our studio, usually, and we do a project space as well for other artists, where we invite other artists to come in and show their work, work that we feel should be shown, and that's what we do with Minus Space. We run a website and a project space. So, I don't know, that's kind of a big overview. You want to dive in here?
Yep, sure. Well, let's see. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I came to New York 14 years ago to study at Pratt Institute, an art school here in Brooklyn. I did a little bit of everything. I was always interested in fashion and sculpture and design, so that's why I came to Pratt. And the reason I ended up at Pratt is because my instructors in San Juan, where I did my undergrad, they all actually studied at Pratt. So they said, you just go to New York, and that's exactly what I did, and it was really wonderful. I had a great experience. It's a great school, all kinds of creativity going on, and it has a campus, so it was a very nice place to have a community. That is something rare, I think, in New York, with other universities that are all spread out with buildings all over Manhattan. So that was really nice, and that's where I met Matthew and a lot of our friends that we met at Pratt, we still have, which is nice because we help each other. So I finished my graduate studies at Pratt, and after that I had a huge student loan, and I said, well, I have to figure out how I can stay in New York, because I wanted to stay in New York, although I would love to also go back to Puerto Rico, but the art scene there is very small compared to the opportunities that I find here in New York. So I found a full-time job and started working from my kitchen table. That was my studio, actually, the kitchen table. And little by little, then I found a better full-time job and kept paying my loans. And until last year, after 10 long years of working full-time, I was able to find a part-time job. I'm still paying my loans, but a lot less, because I really paid a lot of it in these last 10 years. And so now I have more time to spend in my studio, doing the things that I like to do, going to see exhibitions and writing, like you probably saw in my website with my blog. So it's been really great. The last 4 or 5 months has been like the perfect. This is exactly what I want to do in New York. Just enjoy as much as I can and be an artist, basically. My work has changed a lot. Let's see. When I was, like I said, I always liked textiles and fashion and just more like crafts. And I always try to incorporate that into my work. I grew up, my mom had a clothing store, so I always had this idea of combining the design and the fine arts. And I think I did that in my MFA show at Pratt, where I was doing printmaking. I studied sculpture, but then I was also doing a minor in printmaking, and I was actually sewing these prints and making sculptural pieces, three-dimensional pieces with paper. But then the materials that I was using, everything was non-toxic, even though printmaking can be so toxic, but I didn't want to deal with the toxic part of the acid and all that stuff. It was not what I wanted to do. I think I was just more interested in the idea of creating like a textile and then hand stitching it. So that's really how it looked, like long textiles. And sometimes I would make them for the floor, like squares or rectangles. So it was a lot of fun. But from there, I started moving more towards geometry